I think I'm going to talk about the difference between climate change and weather. And hopefully make it more than just climate change and weather. Weather is what's happening right now, and it is changeable. It is, in our current day and age, somewhat predictable. And we have ways of preparing ourselves for weather. We have raincoats and umbrellas and sunscreens and all of these different mechanisms for dealing with what's happening. Climate is a long-term event. Climate change is a long-term event that is in play, but possibly a much longer time frame than weather. There are always huge forces operating in the world. We come into life in a particular moment. We live our life through that particular moment, and we leave the world at a particular moment. And during that entire ride, there is a lot of weather. But in most people's lives over the course of the history of the planet, climate has been pretty predictable, pretty solid. Weather patterns happened, and you sort of knew somewhere around April, spring would occur. Somewhere around June, July, heat would come. October, leaves would fall off the trees and cool weather would come. Winter would be freezing. Weather and climate. Climate change alters weather. Climate change is geological. It happens over very long periods of time. It usually happens with natural causes, and after many, many millennia, you can start to see, and scientists have seen, the movement of climate. Now scientists are seeing something unusual in that the climate itself, the long-term patterns, are changing and affecting the weather. And will do so more and more dramatically because of the change. Things will be less predictable, less known. What has been true for centuries will no longer be true. Weather may become more adversarial. We will have to live differently. Last summer in Los Angeles, the temperature hit 118. Now that's not unusual for the desert, but it was unusual for the city. We're seeing rainstorms and weather patterns now that are, in some cases, unprecedented. And it's the beginning of this change. The word unprecedented is really interesting because we kind of hear it on the news all the time, describing the winds of political change, that we are moving into a new time, a new era. You might even call it a digital era. The forces that were normal and natural over the course of centuries are now altering in fundamental ways. Democracy, which was once a form of people expressing their voices on street corners or at the ballot box, now has people expressing their voices daily with large audiences. And this is just the beginning of a change in the democratic ideal, in that everyone is getting a voice, and we are beginning to see how enormously different our voices are, how contentious and at times loving, supportive and constructive or destructive. But whatever it is that's occurring, we've never seen it before. We don't know how to deal with what's happening, although we're scrambling to figure it out. Human beings are adaptable, and we try to work it through. And I think what we are discovering is that we are up against great transformative forces in the world, and that we are living in unprecedented times. Times of change, be it climate, political, environmental, social, personal. Not that the planet hasn't gone through things like this before. We've certainly been through political change and social change in many ways over the centuries. But we are witnessing the world in transformation from angles and positions that were not available to us before. We can see through many eyes. We can listen through many ears. We can try to find the voices that speak to us, and we can try to tune out the voices that don't speak to us, but they can get very loud, and they can have and create very big movement in the world. And we're certainly seeing that in how the politics of the last 50 years are completely unraveling. And without getting too political here, Europe is dramatically changing. Our own country is changing. There are so many voices. If you look at the Democratic Party for people running for president in the next election, I don't know what the number is now, but it's huge. It will single out, probably, or it may break into and fragment into more parties than we've ever had to deal with before. I don't know where it goes because it's unprecedented. At a time when huge forces may be limiting the time frame, the scope of, the longevity of our own life on this planet. We don't have the proper rain gear, the proper accoutrement that will allow us to weather some of the storms that are coming. Life has been stormy in the past. It has brought about enormous changes on the planet through all sorts of upheaval and activity. And this change that's coming may be just another change, and it may, to use the word of the moment, be an unprecedented change. What to do? Well, you can get scared. There's a validity in fear. Not a bad thing. But it's corrosive, and ultimately if it doesn't provoke some kind of new way of operating in the world, it just becomes limiting and ultimately stagnating. What one needs to do, if one can, is find a way to meet reality head-on. The reality of change is not a new reality. The reality of the transformation of worldly experience is not new. This has been going on for every human being and every animal that's ever inhabited this planet. Change keeps happening. Adaptability keeps happening, and we can adapt to most things except annihilation. But even annihilation is inevitable for every human being. Every human being faces an annihilating moment. It is programmed in, it has been there from the very beginning, and our journey has a beginning and a middle and an end. The fact that there may be a planetary beginning, middle, and an end changes the dynamic on some level and is very big and hard to grasp and maybe ungraspable, but it's real. Most of us fail to deal with our own annihilation, let alone planetary annihilation, if that's what comes, but the mechanisms are the same. Somewhere deep inside the manifested, materialized being that we are, there is a source of being. People who have dived deep into that pool or source or ocean even of being come back from that immersion with a message. The world is not what it appears to be. Life is not what it appears to be. It is in many ways Maya. Maya is what the Hindus call the illusion of human life. And we are all in that Maya experience, some more caught by it than others. There are experiences that happen occasionally to people that break through the Maya, and you get to see past the illusion, if that's what it is, and you start to see how vast this ocean of being is and how temporal this Maya is. It arises, it erupts, it expresses itself. It expresses itself with such density, with such plasticity, with such reality, that we all, of course, take it to be absolute, foundational, and that there is nothing beyond it. But anyone who has had an initiation into the larger life beyond the ephemeral Maya of existence, anyone who's glimpsed it even for a moment, and it can happen at any time in any way, but if you've had that moment, you live differently. You live knowing that this day-to-day journey is part of something much bigger. And how do you access that knowledge, that insight, that wisdom on a daily basis to keep you from getting lost in the Maya of life? Well, as every one of these talks says and implies, you have to shut off the mind, which is the primary device that interacts with Maya, that makes it believable. I like this, I don't like that, I want that, I wish I had that, I hate this, I want that, where can I go if I want to get this one? All of the mind stuff is what keeps this thing so vibrantly alive. Quiet the mind, which is a practice, a yogic practice, a meditative practice of stillness. Quiet the mind, just go nope to thoughts, nope, 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 nope. And then you have to kind of do the same thing with some feelings. Just go, not now, quiet, quiet, and find your way into a core space of being. This is a lifelong journey and practice. So if you fail at it for the first 10 or 12 years, I would advise you not to give up, because every incremental step you make is better than it was before. A little bit of quiet is better than no quiet. 5 minutes of meditation a day is better than no meditation. Sit down and go into this space, and you begin to get a foundational relationship with that space where it becomes a place that you can go, a refuge for yourself. And it happens to go into the heart chakra. There are various chakras that we can use as entry points to this refuge of being. And in that space, you witness Maya, you witness your dynamic relationship to it, and you see inside the place that is the emergence of, the place from which Maya arises and expands and erupts into this. And one of the things you see is that thought, which is a very deep, penetrating, arriving energy, rises from the depths of you and up into explosive, expansive, present tense reality. In other words, reality is being thought by you every moment, over and over, in a way that is practiced, that is learned. I mean, I'm watching my grandchildren creating reality every day. I watched before they could do that. I look at the training ground that we all have for becoming real people, and nobody's telling us otherwise. So we're learning the world as we are informed it is, and our thought process meets that outer space with an inner conviction, and we're locked in. We're locked into this thing. And then we're locked into this thing that has patterns of behavior. It has weather. And every day arrives in its own particular way. And after a while, we learn the patterns and we prepare for them. We buy the boots, we get the raincoat, and we are ready for weather. But we are not exactly ready for climate. And we're not exactly ready for climate change. So all of the practices that we have, all the things that we do to meet life in its arrival, is not ready to have the upheaval that happens periodically in world events. My parents watched World War II arrive. I can only imagine what it was like listening to the news at night. They had radio, they had newspapers, and they had newscasts in the movie theaters before the movie. And that's how they saw the world transforming into something dark and scary. They did not understand it. They did not know why this was happening. How could these leaders, these dictators, these autocratic beings initiate so much discombobulation in the world? How could they do it? Well, we're learning those lessons right now because we're watching these patterns repeat themselves. So we see how it's done with far more visual acuity than they had then. We can watch it every day, and we can watch it from a million angles, and we can see how this thing arrives, but it doesn't stop it from arriving. Here's a really important point. In the midst of what was a political global upheaval, where things looked really bad for the world, my parents did something really interesting. They gave birth to me. In the middle of the darkest age on the planet, they made love. And out of that love came a being who was loved and who probably, given the things that were going on around them, should not have been born because things looked bleak. But they didn't buy into the bleakness. They bought into something deeper. This ocean of connection and love and hope for the world and the planet and for themselves. And You could say maybe it was selfish, maybe it was blindsided, maybe it was the stupidest thing in the world, but I am here saying thank you. Because they brought life into a dark space. Love is that which brings light into darkness. When the world is unprecedented, when things are dark, when the climate change is becoming so powerful, when all of these forces are pointing to annihilation, not just individually, but in mass terms, what underlies that? What arrives out of that? It is all happening in an ocean of being. And what is the nature of that being other than, and forgive me, I know these terms are easy and facile, but other than love or goodness? What else is there from which all this arises? You can call it nothingness, you can call it emptiness, you can call it anything you want, but what is the motivating, driving force of this nothingness? What is the quality that probably is at the core of this nothingness? And I would call it love. Love, goodness, empathy, kindness, this thing that wants to be expressed, that wants to build. If you look around you, some of the most beautiful habitations for humankind that have ever existed. The magic of movies and storytelling that fills huge theaters. The quality of music that fills halls and fills your earphones and your car radio. The beauty of hillsides and clouds and surroundings, the beauty of art and literature and the beauty of children and the beauty of each other. You can't argue with this. All you can say is, this is a temporary experience. Its poignancy and its beauty arrive out of its temporary nature. It comes into being, it expresses itself, we get to experience it, we get to taste it, to love it, and then we get to say goodbye to it. That process of change is a constant. The process of individual change we observe throughout our lives in very natural ways. We watch our parents pass away, our grandparents pass away, and sometimes the order changes and you lose children or you lose things that weren't supposedly meant to have happened, but it happens. Things happen, and it breaks your heart, and it breaks your heart, and as some of our poets have said, a broken heart opens you to the light. The broken heart exposes you to something greater. It's one of the initiating factors into the what is of life. So here we are with, I think, dark forces on the horizon. Not that they haven't been there before, but these may be darker than usual. And who knows what arrives or what will arrive? Nobody. The unknown is and remains the unknown, whether it's tomorrow or 20 years from now or 1,000 years from now. It's still the unknown. It may be even 2 minutes from now. So what can you do? Make love. Bring life into the world, whether it be a child or whether it just be love between two people. Find a way to find kindness in the darkness. Find a way to be good to one another when goodness is in short supply. Find a way to express this inner quality that you are all in touch with and make it available to other people because you have the capacity to do that. And find a way to live this life of knowing that somehow our individual life, this Maya of existence, is grounded in, founded in an ocean of something that is not knowable, but clearly out of it comes love and light. I know darkness comes out of it too, and I know suffering comes out of it as well. And I know we're brought into the midst of the play of light and dark, good and evil, pleasure and suffering. That's all part of the overall truth of our reality, and some days are more difficult than other days. And I've tried to describe this in the last few months, going through one of the more difficult periods of all this. The only thing that gets me through the day-to-day dissolution that I'm experiencing is stillness, one-pointedness, and this one word called acceptance. You just say yes. Whatever it is, you say yes. And you open to and allow the world to be what it is, no matter what it is doing to you. You find this exquisite ability to go, okay. So we are sharing something, both weather and climate. We are all on this journey together. I will tell you, it helps to hold hands. It helps to hug. It helps to love one another. It helps to be kind to one another instead of using this as an opportunity to, want to kill your neighbor. You can actually maybe bake cookies and bring them to your neighbor. It's a conscious action. It's kindness. It's the goodness of being that is called upon in moments like this, maybe in every moment. But when things get really tough, these are the times where your best instincts can take over. But if they aren't trained and you haven't developed them and you haven't worked on them, it may be hard to find them. So use this time, this meditative practice, this world that we've entered into, to take your particular skills and share them with the world, because the world needs you. It doesn't have to be the masses of men. It can just be your friends. It can just be your family. It can just be people you meet on the street. The world needs you. Use your work consciously and lovingly and give to people the thing they need, and know that people who are caught in the storm, who are afraid of the weather, who are not aware yet of the climate, but sensing something is off, try to go to those people and help them out, and then help yourself. In the end, there's nothing but love. Thank you. If there's any questions, I'm happy to try.
When this big change or even small changes kind of happen, it's easy to take it personal. Remember, something for agreement said that it's not personal. Is it personal?
Well, of course, it has aspects of personal. It's sometimes personal. I mean, you're going to get slammed by the weather. The climate change may force you to do things you wouldn't think of doing. Moving somewhere else, taking in refugee families. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what climate change will bring about. But it will feel personal. But is it personal? It's really global. It's really global, and it really might be cosmologically vast. I honestly don't know, but we are both the piece of and the totality of the same thing. In the bodied form, we are a separate speck in the fabric of infinity. But we only last that for a little bit of time. So there's that endless sort of duality, non-duality. We exist and we don't exist simultaneously. Taking it personally and building it into an issue creates problems where you don't have to have problems. And if you can sort of break down the personal and just relax with it and go, this isn't about me. This is something greater. How can I, whatever I am, function in this situation that makes it about compassion and caring for others and not just being obsessed with my discomfort? If you can arrive at that, that's kind of the journey we're on. How do I make life about the whole rather than just me, the part. And that's the human journey. And I talk about it a lot in class, that the real spiritual journey, if there's such a thing, is from me to you, or from I to thou. To get rid of this as the centerpiece. You know, it's there, it's biologically there, it's emotionally there, it's historically there, narratively there, but it's only a small part of a very big story. And when you have literature or film or friends or anything that opens you up to the larger context, go there. Embrace and be one with the world rather than just completely, what about me? What about me? Which is the least of it and the most boring part of the human journey. You know, the what about me makes you very small. What about us is bigger. Feeling the whole world and its drama and its need is even bigger. How can I help in that? You may not be able to go out there and work in the fields of Guatemala and help the Guatemalans. That may not be your calling, but you can do what you can do, which may be love 3 people in your life who you've been very callous to. I mean, I'm telling you, it's those incremental tiny things where you open up beyond your particular selfishness, and be selfless in the world. That's the growth of the human genome. That's what makes us bigger than we are. It begins to put us on a journey that is the journey into something that you know deep inside is what's wanted. You feel it. You just feel this thing that's bigger than you, and you hand yourself over daily. And it is an enormous experience to do that, to be one with something more than you, to step outside of your personal comfort zone whenever possible. But what I discovered is life will bring you that opportunity all the time. You may not see it, or you may just keep pushing it away, but there is a larger world out there that needs you, and you can make incremental forays into that world and make yourself available to that world and help in any way that you can do it. You know, just acts of kindness, calling someone, taking somebody out, bringing cookies to the neighbor, whatever it is, this is a way to live, and it has rewards that are people will be grateful and possibly love you. And you can walk around loved and loving as one of the main ingredients in how to make this whole process better. And it's going to be more required because you're going to see a lot of not so much love out there, voicing itself. What's your reaction to that? Not to fight it, but just absorb it and transform it into love and kindness and compassion. That transformational thing is what's at the core of what you might call the personal spiritual journey into something bigger than you, which in fact is the truth of your existence. You are bigger than it, and the way to know it is to act on it. Go beyond your personal suffering. It's not easy. You know, these groups like ours are groups that kind of create a collective support. We're like the AA group for spiritual transcendence. You know, let's help each other instead of, you know, be miserable. Let's not buy into the misery of things. Let's find kindness. And more than kindness, I mean, honestly, the doorway that this opens up is into something, you know, Einsteinian, you know, and Shakespearean. It's vast. It's really vast. I can't even begin to talk about the massiveness of what I experience every day. I don't even know the words for it. But my life at this point in time is not personal. It is massive. It is massive. And the entire world speaks to me all the time. Everything speaks to me. And everything is a personal dialogue, but it's not Bruce. It's just putting me in play. And we're all in play to the degree that we can open up to that. It's a massive ride, and it wants our help. So, do what you can. Okay? Okay? Okay, I mean, I know not all of you came here for a lecture of this kind, but, you know, there's a lot of spiritual niceties that one can happily float around, and a lot of people do. And I would certainly push you to look at any of those online. There's thousands of them who will affirm all of this sweet and joy stuff that comes with this particular journey. I am clearly moving in a little bit of a different direction. Anyone who finds that worthwhile is welcome to follow, and anybody who finds it offensive or disturbing, go elsewhere. You don't need to listen to this stuff. On the other hand, this is a truth that I am finding needs to be expressed, and whoever wants to hear it, they can tune in. Thank you.